Welcome into Sports Memo's betting podcast for February 26th, NHL edition, the day after the trade deadline. A lot of changes happening, so could be a good time to be in the NHL betting markets. Hope to get some winners on today's podcast. We got Alex B. Smith and Andrew McGinnis. McGinnis, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Doing good. Always a pleasure, Drew. Always look forward to this, and it should be a great podcast. Like you mentioned, trade deadline yesterday, and one thing about the trade deadline, Drew, I always say is it never lives up to the hype. It's so talked about, but there weren't too many moves, but there definitely were a couple ones that are going to change the league for sure. So look forward to going over that and hopefully giving out some winners today. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. You're up in Canada. We also got Alex B. Smith on the pod. He's the $2 handicapper today at sportsmemo.com. $2 Tuesday. You can get his top play in the NHL for just $2. Great day to check out the website. But Alex, you've been hot of late. Even over the last 80 plus plays, man. You're profitable. The last 18 plays hitting at over 60%. So good in the NHL. Welcome into the podcast. How you doing today?
Doing pretty good. Like I said, now we finally know what players are staying put. Now with the trade deadline out of the way, so now everybody's just gearing up for where they're going to finish out. You got some bad teams that are trying to finish the season strong and get over their disappointing, track records of sort. Then you got these good teams like Nashville. That in my opinion, they won the trade deadline, picking up a quality player like Wayne Simmons and Michael Granlund. It's interesting. We've seen a lot of teams trading within divisions this year. That's something that you usually don't see too often at the deadline. That's usually kind of a off-season trade pattern. But Nashville picking up a player from Minnesota, a team that's kind of on the decline. We've seen Columbus pick up some guys, mainly from Ottawa, which is a team that's just been in complete disarray. So now we got the team shaking out, teams making their push for the playoffs, getting things stabilized and ready for the next 20 games and into the postseason.
So you bring up Nashville, Alex. So and they're making the kind of the heavy moves here at the end. Would you say that propels them over to be the best team, maybe over Tampa Bay?
I don't know if they're as good as Tampa Bay, but if you look at that Western Conference right now, it's Calgary and San Jose are 1-2, and then you got Nashville just a bit behind with 79 points. They lead the Central Division. I think the Predators, adding Granlund and adding Wayne Simmons, two guys who can score and they can get physical, and that's what Nashville needs to do to win. That's their style of hockey. They crash the boards hard, work deep in the corners, but they also get guys in good positions to put the puck in the back of the net. And so I think that's a huge move, getting those two guys and really not giving up much of anything. Whereas if you look at Columbus team, for example, who's got great odds to win the Stanley Cup now at 25-1, something to take note of because they're going all in. They didn't trade Artemi Panarin or Sergei Bobrovsky, two guys who are going to be free agents, unrestricted free agents at the end of the year. They're going to be gone from Columbus. So adding pieces on top of those, kind of treating those guys like free agent rentals, they're going all in for a Stanley Cup right now, and this is a good time for them to do it because they're in the middle of a dangerous pack with New York, Washington defending Stanley Cup champions, Pittsburgh on the horizon, Carolina as well in that Metropolitan Division. They have bought into this, and now we got to see if it translates to success on the ice and success in the postseason, something we haven't seen from that Blue Jacket franchise.
All right, man. Well, yeah, we got a couple games we're breaking down here. Also going over more in-depth on the NHL trade deadline, what teams to maybe look to bet on, what teams to maybe fade down the stretch with motivation possibly being an issue left outside the playoffs. But want to get into some games here, guys, over the next 20 minutes or so. Game number 1-2 on the board, 7 Eastern puck drop. We got Los Angeles at Carolina. Carolina a heavy favorite here, minus 260, minus 270, depending where you're shopping. Lower total, 5.5 being the total in this LA Carolina game. McGinnis, how would you look to bet the top of the board here?
I'll look at this one here, Drew, and I really, really have to say this, LA Kings team. I've been talking about it for weeks, months now. It's one of those things where 6 has become the new normal. And I know you know that, Drew, and I think that 6.5s, we've seen them. We've seen some 7s, but again, we're seeing a 5.5 total here with this Kings team. And, they're a team that struggles. They're a team that cannot play well consistently whatsoever. They're bottom of the league, let's face it. But, the total's gone over for them in 4 of their last 5 games on the road and 11 of their last 14 overall. And I'm pretty sure all of those were most likely either 5.5s or 6s, and I bet you 90% of them were 5.5s. Last night again, they play Tampa Bay, a really slow start to the game, and they all of a sudden score 3 straight goals on the Tampa Bay Lightning, and Tampa gets one more, sends it to overtime, and they cash once again an over ticket. So we're looking at one here. It's a 5.5 number. Again, like I said, we've seen some talent. We've seen some goal-scoring capability from the Kings, guys. But honestly, looking at this one in a back-to-back situation, oftentimes I like to say in a back-to-back spot, it depends, how the team played and who they played against, whether you want to see them the next night with an over or an under. But for me in this one, it deems to an over. This Carolina team is rested. They're playing some great hockey. They've got their whole celebration thing going at the end of games, and they seem to be very comfortable right now. They're competing for a playoff spot, and they're playing pretty much their best hockey of the entire season right now. And I often like to talk about how you want to spread around your goal scoring, and that's what I've really, really liked about this Carolina team is, you've got guys like Ferland, you've got guys like Stahl, Justin Williams, Sebastian Aho that are leading the way, but then you've got guys throughout the lineup that are also able to step in and make a difference, make an impact each and every night. So looking at this one here, it's important for people to mention and realize that just because LA is not really a great team does not mean they haven't been going over the total and been involved in lots of higher scoring games. So, Carolina, I think they kind of break out of their shell here tonight, catch a really tired LA team kind of on their heels and step things up big time. I wish there was more value, Drew, on Carolina minus 1.5. It's pretty much just, plus 100 right now. But that's really, really, it's just key. I think you look at this one here and you see, I think a slow start from the Kings. They put forward their best effort. They put their, best foot forward against Tampa Bay Lightning. Let's face it, guys. We got to give them credit. They got a point against Tampa Bay Lightning, by far the best team in the league right now. And, obviously they still can't get the win. But on the second half of this back-to-back, Carolina gets the job done. But this one should go over 5.5. And I do want to mention, Drew, I talked about it last time on the podcast with you guys. Once again, the live betting overs has been fantastic. Getting it at an intermission. If you see a game start off really slow in the first period, because before the trend was first period over bets. For me now, it's been waiting after the first period and seeing what the total is after that. Last night the live total was 5.5 in the Leafs game after the first period. The game finished 5-3. So I think it's important to look at that for this game as well, because if you see a slow start to this one, things could definitely just blast off for the rest of the game.
Okay, so liking the over in this low total game. Alex, what about you? How would you look to bet LA Carolina? You like the big favorite at home?
No, I'm actually right in line with Andrew here as far as that total's concerned. And he makes a great point as well about the first period overs, and we've seen those dwindle a little bit. But when you see those games, even if you like a first period over, but if you see it goes 1-1 and cashes, or it falls short at a 1-0 game, but both teams have a lot of chances on the board. If you're watching that, and you see a lot of missed chances, a lot of shots that hit the post. Definitely look at betting the over live because of how much money has come in on these first period overs. We haven't seen a lot of volatile moves for the totals unless those first period overs cash. So, like you said, we will see a 5.5 or a 6, which is like a basic, pregame total. It'll stay there if the game's only 1-0 after the first 20 minutes, more often than not. So that's something to look forward to. But as far as this game goes, you've got an LA team, like I said, they should be dog tired after keeping up with the speed of the Tampa Bay Lightning, going into overtime, making that comeback and falling short in a shootout, rather, 4-3 last night. Now they play a Carolina team that can shut things down in their own end, but they can also get things ramped up offensively. The Kings have allowed 3 or more goals in 11 of the last 14 games, and we've seen the games go over 6 of the last 8 overall. We're getting a great price here, and we're seeing that 5.5 as well, which is rare at such a low price. I think this game clears over 5.5 tonight.
All right, so both of you guys on this over here. Something to look at. Game number 1 over 5.5. Guys, I caught the SVP segment with Barry Melrose. Barry Melrose, one of my more favorite ESPN personalities, and they were going over some of the trade deadline stuff. He brought up this guy Stone, who, I'm not going to pretend to beat the NHL betting markets. I watch it as a fan sometimes, but Stone goes to Las Vegas. How big of a plus do you think this is, Alex? I mean, would you look for Las Vegas to kind of make a run here and really push towards the Stanley Cup again?
Well, this is huge for Vegas, not just for this year, but as a franchise overall. To pick up a guy like Mark Stone, who's clearly one of the better elite defensemen in the league. He's a guy who can move the puck forward. You know, when you think about the defense spot and a lot of things to make a parallel comparison in basketball, it's like a point guard. If you have a defenseman that can move the puck up ice and has an offensive vision in mind, but also can get back down to their end of the ice and play defense. And that's the kind of guy Mark Stone is. He's an offensive facilitator. He can score. He can set up guys at the point with a lot of assists. This is huge for a Vegas team that has struggled at times getting some consistency offensively. But the fact that they were able to sign him long term too, March 1st will officially be the date that they can make offers to guys who just picked up in the trade deadline, but he's more than likely going to sign a long-term deal at a favorable price that helps with the salary cap as well. So kudos to the general managers and staff with Vegas to pick up a quality guy that Ottawa was just kind of going to leave by the wayside because they're going through a massive rebuild. So I think this could help Vegas. Like I said, they're going to be right in the middle of things. It's going to be a tough. It won't be an easy run like they had last year in that Western Conference with the likes of Calgary, San Jose, as I mentioned, Nashville and Winnipeg as well. In that mix, but they're definitely primed to have some decent talent on that blue line in the future with Stone coming to Vegas.
Yeah, I didn't think that a defenseman would be this big of a mainstream media grab as far as everybody paying attention to it. But Alex, you're saying a defenseman, can it be as important, if not more important, than a guy that's a frontline guy?
Well, if you look at the defensemen that are always kind of mentioned all the time, guys like Brent Burns, like I said, Mark Stone, going back a few years, Duncan Keith, Brian Campbell's another guy. Like I said, those defensemen that are good two-way players. I mean, you have great stay-at-home defensemen as well, and those are also important. You have to have that because that's their main job is to help out their goaltenders to protect the blue line. But having those guys who have that extra bit of offensive skill that can facilitate offensive play, move the puck around, and have a good shot as well. Shea Weber is another guy. I mean, he shoots the puck at 110 miles an hour. We've seen his numbers decline over the years since he left Nashville and went to Montreal. But he's one of those guys that that extra added, step to their game, that extra level is what makes a defenseman more important than just say a regular stay-at-home defensive guy who just hits and clears the puck out.
Okay. And Andrew, what about you? What do you think of this Stone trade, and do you think that there's a bigger trade out there that might help a team in the NHL?
Yeah, I mean, just to clarify, I think for all the viewers, you guys are talking about how he's a two-way player. Obviously, he'll be on the first line as a forward for this team, but he's a great defensive player, for his team. So just to kind of clarify that, but I really do think that this trade will really, really, truly show the skill that he has, guys. I mean, 26-year-old, 28 goals, 62 points, 58 games, and that's for the Ottawa Senators. I mean, imagine being, to use what Alex says with another sport, imagine, playing for the Hornets in the NBA, and all of a sudden you're having a great season there, and you get traded to the Warriors, and how much better are you going to get? I mean, this is really how it is. I'm not saying the Vegas Golden Knights are the Warriors, but I'm just saying that when you go to a better team, you're surrounded by better players. There's more of a winning culture. They're in a playoff spot. He's only going to be better, and he's already dominating the league playing for the Ottawa Senators. So I was really impressed with that. But, I will say one trade I really did like, Drew, was Wayne Simmons going over to Nashville. I think that was a huge, huge trade. I think everyone knew that his time was kind of over with in Philadelphia. So I just feel like, what he really brings to the Predators is kind of like that physical grit mentality, the playoff mentality, but also a goal-scoring capability for more of a tough guy kind of thing. So he's going to be on their second line, Drew, but he's also one that you don't want to mess with. You don't want to kind of be behind the net with. You don't want to be along the boards in the battle with. He's too strong. He's too big. But he can also score. So that's something that the Predators really needed, and they really capitalized with that trade. So, but I will say, I mean, the Vegas Golden Knights just made themselves a hell of a lot better. I mean, you often talk about how a team won the trade, who got the better player. Jonathan Marchessault, William Karlsson, and Mark Stone are on a first line together. That is a hell of a first line. That's a scary, scary first line. And you got Max Pacioretty, Paul Stastny, and Alex Tuch on the second line. That's scary, man. I think, as far as betting odds go, I think that this team with a goalie like Fleury has been known for being an under team, Drew. Now that they've got this top line, look for them to be going over the total a lot more.
All right, Andrew, good breakdown, man. And you guys can check out McGinnis's play at sportsmemo.com. He's got his Tuesday night buy one, get one. It's discounted just $20. And Alex B. Smith is the $2 handicapper. You can get his top NHL play. He's been hot on the ice. for just $2 Tuesday handicapper. That's Alex B. Smith. We'll get into more trade deadline talk, who to bet on, fade teams. But guys, wanted to get to game number 11-12, 7 p.m. Eastern puck drop. Pittsburgh at Columbus, 6.5 being the total. A lot higher, full goal higher total than the first game we talked about, with another big favorite, not as big, Columbus laying anywhere from minus 148 at Pinnacle, seeing as high as minus 160 at 5 dimes. Alex, how would you look to bet Pittsburgh-Columbus?
I'm looking at Pittsburgh here in this game, and if you look overall, Columbus, we talk about the trade deadline. I mean, no team made bigger moves, in my opinion, as far as numbers go with Columbus. They pick up Keith Kincaid, who's a solid goaltender for the New Jersey Devils. If you look at his numbers, as far as qualifying goaltenders go, so, number of starts, number of minutes played, his numbers rank toward the bottom of the league, but that's because he was playing with one of the worst defenses in the league in the New Jersey Devils. Now he's going to a team that has a much better blue line, plays better defensively, more responsible with the puck. And his numbers should improve from there, and that's to back up Sergei Bobrovsky, a guy who's won the Vezina Trophy as a top goalie. They also get forwards Ryan Zingle and Matt Duchene from Ottawa. As we mentioned, Ottawa, kind of pulling things apart, so Columbus reaping the rewards of that. But it's going to take a lot of time, to get these guys gelled together. It shouldn't take too much time, but it's going to, at least not going to be right away where we see these guys gel with Panarin and company, guys who've been playing all year and really have kind of that extra sense of awareness amongst each other. So looking at that, we could say it in basketball or other sports too. When you make mass trades, you bring in a mass amount of new people. It takes time to gel. It takes time to get the feeling for one another. Pittsburgh's a team that we know their core group of guys, and they're missing a lot of guys on their blue line, especially Ali Mata, Chris Letang, Brian Dumoulin, all out for this game. So it's going to be a lot of scoring possibly in this game. That's why we're seeing that full total at 6.5. But I like Pittsburgh here in this spot. They've won 9 of the last 10 meetings with Columbus. This is a team that in their minds, being outside right now, if the playoffs start today, they wouldn't make it for the first time in ages. Their backs are against the wall, and they know that. They can't fool around anymore in this last 20 games to play. If they're going to make the postseason, they've got to make a push now. And you have to beat teams within your division. That Metropolitan, I talk about it all the time. I can't stress enough how tightly wound of a race that always is. This is where they need to start. So I think Pittsburgh at a plus price on the road here. They should be able to take care of business against the Columbus team that is going to be better before the end of this year, but they still need some time to gel with all those new pieces.
Nice, Alex. Liking a full flavor dog here. That's a nice price you're getting on Pittsburgh tonight. McGinnis, you feel the same way about Pittsburgh Columbus looking towards the underdog?
Yeah, I could definitely, feel the same way as Alex. But it's good that he's on the side in this one. I'm on the total. I look at it here, and I agree with what Alex did say about how sometimes it takes a while for a team to gel. But no matter who you're playing for, who your line mates are, it doesn't take away your skill, it doesn't take away your capability of scoring. And I was just saying today, with a line like Panarin, Duchene, and Atkinson on your top line, and you got Dzingel and Pierre-Luc Dubois on the second line, that's a lot of talent. It's a lot of goal scoring capability, a lot of leaders, a lot of guys that are not really pass first guys that just like to score, like to shoot the puck, and that's what you really look for. I mean, for me, when I look at a guy like Nick Foligno being on the third line, that tells me that this team is definitely elevating, getting better, and really improving themselves. They've really, really stacked up here for the playoff run, for their playoff push. Their first power play unit is Panarin, Duchene, Foligno, and Atkinson and Werenski. I think that's just outstanding. If they get on the power play, they should be able to convert more often than not, which is very impressive. But looking at this one here, guys, I just think that I've been so disappointed with Pittsburgh's defensive capabilities throughout the entire season that I don't see when it stops. I think the next time they get a victory or the next time they compete in a game again, playing tonight, it's going to have to be another higher scoring game. It's disappointing that they're on the outside looking in because they have so much talent. Guys like Gensel, guys like Hornquist, not even mentioning guys like Crosby and Malkin, Kessel. Where's Kessel been the past couple of weeks? I haven't seen him. I haven't seen him anywhere. And usually you look at that outdoor Winter Classic game they played in against the Flyers, you'd be so impressed if you watched the first period and a half, Drew. And all of a sudden they have that huge, huge breakdown, collapse, whatever you want to call it, in the third period, and they really go downhill. So, in summary, I got to look over the total in this one. I got to think this one skyrockets over. I think there's too much talent on both teams, and the goaltending has been shaky for Pittsburgh. So, they can go ahead and try and prove me wrong and play a defensive-styled game, but I'm going to go over 6.5 in this one.
Okay, liking the over here. And McGinnis, you said they played an outdoor game. Where was that at?
It was in Philadelphia.
Okay, and something that Alex and I were talking about off recording here. Was it snowing at all?
The weather was bad with that game, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't as bad as it's been before, but it definitely was a little bit. It was cold, and it was on and off, kind of just. I don't know if it was like ice pellets, but it was definitely it alters the game for sure. It's interesting. I don't know if you'd really want to play in that kind of game, but Pittsburgh has fared well. I do know that they fared well in those games.
Well, this is something I learned today. Alex taught me. If the snow is bigger chunks of snow, that means it's probably like in between 25 and 32 degrees. Whereas if it's smaller chunks of snow, that would mean it's really cold, right, Alex?
Yeah, exactly, and that was the thing with that game. Yeah, it was almost like a freezing rain kind of issue. So that's when you start talking about basically it's the rain is coming down and then freezing in the middle of the air and turning into ice. That's when you have sleet and those kind of factors. So when that game outdoors, I think the temperature was around like 37, 38 degrees and dropping, and then of course you factor in the wind, which we talk about wind ad nauseum in baseball and football. Never have to think about it in hockey unless you have one of these outdoor games. And so wind, I think wind actually was a factor in one of those goals that Philly scored to come back. They had to come back in that game, mind you, and then they win it in overtime, 4-3. So Pittsburgh, I mean, like I said, it was a bit of misfortune having to be outdoors. I don't think they blow that lead if they were inside at the Wells Fargo Center or at PPG's Paints Arena in Pittsburgh.
How would you look to bet that as far as if the ice is more slick, there's wind, would it favor the over? I mean, how would you even go about handicapping that?
Overall in Winter Classic games and the Stadium Series, there's different names for them, but we've seen more of those games go over the total, and it has a lot to do with, like I said, not just the wind, but also there's a clause most of the time. I don't think it happened in this game actually, where in the third period the teams swap at the 10-minute mark to make sure that the wind is balanced and even. So there's actually a true kind of one side or the other edge where each team plays 30 minutes in each end because of that, to try and offset any balance or make sure that no team is getting an advantage of the wind blowing at their back or in front of them. So it makes for an odd handicap, but you only have to deal about it maybe 2 or 3 times a year. And I think the next couple of outdoor games, and I use air quotes when I say that, is because I think one of them will be in a dome and another one will be in a warm weather spot, so it won't be as drastic as playing in Chicago or Philly or Pittsburgh or Boston.
It's pretty cool, though. I mean, from a marketing standpoint, to be putting these games in like football stadiums and stuff, I like it. I find myself wanting to watch these out.
It is, and now they're gonna expand, and we're gonna see some of the southern teams like Dallas and Nashville playing them, because for years it's always been Chicago, Detroit, Boston, Philly, Pittsburgh, and those are the key teams to watch in the league. But I think to have, like I said, using this as a marketing tool for the league, they need to include Tampa Bay. We saw LA and San Jose play at Dodger Stadium a couple of years ago. We can have outdoor games. It doesn't have to be a snow globe atmosphere that we all kind of dream of and think about when you imagine kids playing pond hockey or something. It would be cool to have it and have Tampa and Florida maybe play a game in that giant dome that the Rays play in or something like that. Just different atmospheres, different surroundings. Like I said, to help the brand of the NHL.
Well, I was there, guys, in Boston a few years ago when they played Montreal in the Winter Classic, and people often complained about saying how if you're going to be in a football stadium, at Gillette Stadium where the Patriots play, is it going to be hard to see the ice? Is it going to be a weird atmosphere? I'll tell you, that was one of the best atmospheres I've been a part of my entire life at a sporting event. I don't care that the rink looks so small in comparison to the football field. It doesn't matter. You're surrounded by a bunch of other fans that are having the time of their lives, enjoying the game, and that's really, like Drew touched on as far as a marketing perspective goes, what they're really aiming for. Because we all know they're not doing it for the players, they're doing it for the fans, and they're creating a whole other atmosphere. And when you can get thousands and thousands and thousands of more people in those stands, it makes for a great atmosphere and a great time.
Yeah, absolutely. I know it brings, I'm like I said earlier, I'm not trying to beat the NHL betting markets long term or anything, but I'll throw a bet down in those games. I just find myself watching a little more. But guys, let's get back to the actual breakdown of tonight's games, and we're talking with Alex B. Smith. He's the $2 handicapper at sportsmemo.com. Great day to check out the site. A lot of discounts up there, and you can get his top NHL play. He's been hot on the ice for just $2, or follow him on Twitter at AXSmithSports. Also, Andrew McGinnis, and you can follow him on Twitter at McGinnisPicks. He has a 2-for-1 up at sportsmemo.com. Guys, let's talk game number 9-10 here. We got Ottawa, Washington, another 7 o'clock puck drop, 6.5 being the total. Huge favorite here. Washington laying, minus 330, seeing at some shops, minus 340. McGinnis, how would you look to go after this one?
Well, we were talking about the trade deadline and how it definitely impacts each team in their own way. And let's face it, this Ottawa team is an absolute disaster right now. Of course, they trade away Duchesne, trade away Stone, trade away Dzingel. I mean, there's so many guys and so many pieces that have left that team over the past several years. You really got to wonder who's left. And I understand they've got some prospects. They've got some guys coming up from the farm teams and stuff like that, the AHL team. But we're talking about now. We're talking about the present. We're talking about tonight's game. And I don't really see anybody putting the puck in the back of the net for them. And it's so funny, Drew, because they were on the biggest overrun. Every game was going over for them. And now you look at their lineup and you kind of wonder, hey, where's that scoring going to come from now? Because, after even really Bobby Ryan, a little bit of Jean-Gabriel Pageau, maybe a little bit of Anthony Duclair, who's really left to score for you? I don't know. That's really my biggest question. And you look at a team like Washington, who, as we all know, has one of, if not the best goal scorer in the league, and Alex Ovechkin, so many other guys alongside him, that their biggest factor is that they're trying to stay defensive. They're trying to play a more defensive style of hockey and really buckle things down in that aspect. So the fact that the best under out there right now is a 6.5 total, and Ottawa Senators have traded away practically their best players, their top goal scorers, that are pretty much scoring like 50% of their goals, or at least being in on them. The betting markets are really late to this, Drew. And I want everyone listening to this to really recognize this point, because it's going to take a little while for people to realize, and I'll still say this, even if this game is, an 8-4 game, the Ottawa Senators are no longer a massive over team. Now that those guys are gone, they're going to struggle big time. It's disappointing for their franchise, but they have gone full rebuild mode. And Washington, don't sleep on them, guys. I mean, this is a team that's defending Stanley Cup champions. We haven't heard as much about them this year, but come playoff time, they're going to be ready again, and it's all about defense, all about goaltending for them. So the best under you can get tonight is 6.5. I gladly will take that one against an Ottawa Senators team who I don't even recognize some of the names on their roster, Drew. That's how you know they got some AHL guys coming up just to kind of fill the role.
And Alex, let me come to you on this question. One, do you have anything on Ottawa, Washington? And also, Andrew brings up the fact of, as far as losing players at the trade deadline, as far as some big names, some big pieces. Do you think it's more important or has more value in finding the teams that got the good players to make a Stanley Cup run, or as much, if not more, value on fading the teams that lost those players down the end of the stretch? Which one would you say has more emphasis in winning games in the NHL betting markets?
That's a great question, and I would say it's about even. You have to look at it from a team-to-team basis. A team like Ottawa, for example, because we've known they were going to be at the bottom of the league the entire year, and we've seen them go through some horrible stretches of hockey. So for them to kind of get these pieces moved away, and they're, like I said, they're starting their rebuild. So as of now, obviously, yeah, there's kind of the cupboard's empty, and they're just kind of rolling out players just so they can compete in games. Usually, more often than not, the kind of the mood, the mantra there will be that that's a team worth fading. And then you can also have a situation like Minnesota, for example, a team that moves pieces, but they're still kind of in the race. I mean, right now, they would technically be a playoff team, but the mood and feel says, okay, we're still in this race, but at the same time, we know we're looking more on the inside looking out in that aspect. So there's cases where you can, I like to look more toward teams that have improved, because sometimes we can find it'll take a while for the books to correct on those, make corrections on those numbers, as opposed to where teams that are, obviously, like I said, the markets have realized, okay, Ottawa, the best pieces that Ottawa had, as bad as they were, they're gone now. So now you're not going to get any value really playing on or against them. And one thing to note about the under tonight, even with all the guys that Ottawa had a couple weeks ago, they still have been 5-2, trending to the under. So, like I said, if Washington kind of just slows down, plays their own game, they only need 2 goals to win this one. I think the under might be worth looking at with Caps and Sens tonight.
Good stuff, Alex. And guys, keep in mind, he's the $2 handicapper at sportsmemo.com. We're running up against it time-wise, guys, so we'll go rapid fire here. Alex, saw you had a free play at sportsmemo.com. Guys, check it out for the more in-depth analysis. But it's game number 3 for Calgary at the New York Islanders, seeing a total of 6 with a pretty competitively priced game here. -110 for the Islanders, -115 maybe, depending where you're shopping. But any quick thoughts here, Calgary versus New York Islanders?
Yeah, this is one of the more interesting games of the night. You got 2 teams that lead their respective divisions. You got Calgary, like I said, they're number 1 in the Western Conference, but they're on the Pacific Division. And the New York Islanders have been the surprise team of the year. Barry Trotz, who left Washington after winning a cup there, staying in the division, going to the Islanders, and now they lead Washington by 2 points, despite the fact they've lost 3 of their last 4 games. They are playing at home, where they've won 8 of the last 9, but they're taking on a Calgary team that beat them 6 days ago and has continued to roll. They're on a 5-game winning streak. They have the better offense. They're getting some good goaltending. Now, was the issue with the caveat with backing the Flames of the late was David Rittich and the starter for tonight, Mike Smith, hadn't been doing that well. They're starting to get things rolling a little bit. Mike Smith has won 6 of the last 10 meetings against the Islanders as well. And Calgary's 9-5 against Eastern Conference clubs on the road this year. I think they should pick up another win. I like the Calgary minus $1.05.
All right, and you can follow him on Twitter at AXSmithSports, $2 handicapper today at sportsmemo.com. Also, McGinnis, we got 19:20, 9 p.m. Eastern drop here. Florida, Arizona, 2 warmer weather teams. Total of 6, -130, -135. That's Arizona laying at home. You want to finish us off with this game?
Yeah, I won't spend too much time on it, Drew, but this is one here where I found some decent value here. I'm going to go with a small dog here with the visiting Florida Panthers. You look at last night, an interesting game there for the Panthers. They get the 4-3 win. They come back. Again, they're underdogs. They're +125, short dogs there against the Colorado Avalanche, who were playing some great, great hockey. That game, of course, went to overtime, and I think you look at this one here, and, nothing makes me more mad than underachieving teams and stuff like that than overachieving teams right now. And one team overachieving, especially at home, has been the Arizona Coyotes. They're a team that, won 3 straight. Edmonton Oilers, the Vancouver Canucks, but more importantly, a 4-1 victory over the Winnipeg Jets. They got to be feeling pretty good about themselves. They got to be feeling pretty great. They're scoring. They're playing some great defensive hockey, but not so fast. I mean, this Florida team comes into town. Florida's 5-2 in their last 7 against Arizona, and they've got some flat-out goal scorers. They got some speed. I just don't think the Coyotes will hang tough with them. And again, I mentioned certain things, how I handicap differently with back-to-backs, but sometimes coaches know how to adjust and learn from the previous game, and they will learn from what happened yesterday. There were some sloppy mistakes that led to Colorado goals, and they do not want to be competing in a game like that. We know how talented Florida is. We know they've got guys like Barkov, Huberdeau, Hoffman that can go out there and make a difference, but when it comes down to it, you got to play some defensive hockey, and when you start to shut down the Arizona Coyotes, they start to get really flustered and frustrated, and that's what starts to worry me. I also would have a small lean to the over in this one, just because Arizona has been scoring recently, and that is, to be honest with you, kind of rare for it to be quite honest, for them to be scoring a lot on average and consistently. Total's gone over in 14 of the last 21 games on the road for the Panthers, and as far as this Coyotes team goes, like I said, they were involved in a high-scoring game against Calgary, a relatively higher-scoring game against Winnipeg, relatively higher-scoring game against the Golden Knights. They're putting up goals and they're involved in higher-scoring games. So I would look at the Florida Panthers as the dog here, and a little small lean here to the over as well, Drew.
All right. Follow him on Twitter at McGinnis Picks. Get his buy one, get one at sportsmemo.com. We also got Alex B. Smith. Follow him on Twitter at AX Smith Sports. He's a $2 handicapper at Sports Memo. Alex, any closing thoughts before we shut this down?
No, well, like I said, it's been a great conversation. You've asked some great questions, and this is going to be a really fun final stretch down the race with a lot of these teams, like I said, trying to make a push for the playoffs. And tonight's card, there's some really good games. San Jose, Boston, a game we need to talk about. It's going to be a fun game to watch. Like I said, we got Pittsburgh and Columbus, Minnesota and Winnipeg, Dallas and Vegas. It's just a great night to kind of just sit down on the couch, grab some popcorn, a couple beers, and watch some good games, and hopefully cash some tickets on them as well.
Well said. Great way to end it, and hope you two enjoy your night, have profitable nights, and everyone out there, best of luck with your bets. Make sure to check out the website, $2 Tuesday, Alex B. Smith's top NHL play, hot on the ice for just $2. We'll be back tomorrow talking with Teddy Covers, breaking down the NBA betting board.